this meeting. So I will try to present you some challenges and some issues in social and human sciences. Oh, so I don't know why I don't have the beginning of the left part of the slide. You know? And yeah. Ordi, hein. Mon ordi, non? C'est pas un... Should I try with my computer? Okay, so at least it worked. Okay. So, let's start. First some words about these sciences. We have new data like video, eye tracking, mouse tracking, social interactions through the data from the social networks. So some of these new data are big, some are not. But maybe this what we could call small data, even if they are not so small, are more complex and more accurate. And all this new data will allow us to learn about quantities that were invisible only a few years ago. So I will try to give you some example in human sciences. So new projects. So the first one is about psychological and visual cognition. Second one is about the development of the visual system. And something about learning, the handwriting learning, and if I have time, social networks. I don't know, maybe not. Okay, so I'll start with visual cognition. So as you may know, face processing is really crucial to social interaction. And so face processing is about being able to categorize and identify like happiness, angriness, and other expressions. And so the objective of this project is to try to understand how we can identify and categorize this expression. And this is based on feature representations of the faces. What do you want? Oh, okay, thank you. Ah, I have to do something. Yeah.
Sorry.
Work? No. Okay, votre clavier n'est pas identifié. Oh, okay. I think I would just skip this. Did it work? No.
Oops.
No? Yeah, here. So face processing is based on what is called anticipation. So when visual information arrives through the retina in the brain, you have some like feedback connections between the orbitofrontal cortex and the inferotemporal cortex, and it's very difficult to understand all this feedback connection and how the brain is able to treat this visual information and to treat this information and to transform this information into a categorization of face expression. So the objective is to try to understand this anticipation process, to model the feedback connections, and then to be able to understand the classification. So typical data are fMRI data and EEG, and the standard statistical tool used to treat this data nowadays is neural networks. So I will try to say a few words about neural networks. I don't know if you are familiar with this machine learning tool. So it has been introduced by Frank Rosenblatt, who was a psychologist. And the idea is the following. So you have the inputs, which are all the faces, so all the expression, all the images, more precisely, that you can record. And the output will be the classification between the expressions. And the idea of the neural network is to introduce between the inputs and the outputs some like hidden steps or hidden levels or hidden layers, and which could have like a complex or not structure between the inputs and the outputs, and to try to classify, to produce a classification tool to classify the outputs. So in this network, each node will be like a statistical model, either a regression model. You may think of logistic regression or PCA. And this neural network will be a combination of all these models performed in series and in parallel. So in the 50s, when Rosenblatt introduced this neural network, we were just able to optimize and to estimate everything. So you estimate through the optimization of a cost function. And because computers were quite slow, it was just we could just have a few numbers of levels between the input and the outputs. And since maybe 2010 with Jan Leclercq, that have introduced deep neural networks, so deep learning. So you just introduce, a lot of really, a lot of levels between the inputs and the outputs. And thanks to the performance of the computers, oh, damn it. Where I am. What should I do? What is this? No, it's not mine. It's not my computer. Non. Attends, je vais le mettre sur la chaîne. OK. It's fine. Fine. So I will continue like this. So nowadays we are able to use deep neural networks. So what about deep neural networks in visual cognition? So when you apply deep learning to a bank of images like this, the deep neural network will learn some feature representation. So the first level of the network will just be like unstructured part of the face. Then when you increase the level of cognition, you will start recognizing some very basic features of the face, like eyes, mouth, nose, and blah, blah, blah. And then when you continue increasing in the sophistication of the cognition, you start recognizing the faces. So what are the statistical challenges? So at the cognitive level, we still need to understand the link between the levels of the network with what psychologists name this feedback connection. So the idea would be to try to understand if each node of the network could correspond to a part of the brain. A second challenge would be to work with not with static images, but with dynamic, like video, and try to adapt the network to online features. And from a more maybe mathematical or statistical point of view, there are a lot of challenges with deep learning. So some questions about how to optimize the estimation of this network with HPC, and Xavier will talk about this tomorrow. And also something about why does it work? Because so you have this standard tool. So maybe in machine learning you may know like random forest or decision trees or Markov models. So these are like some standard statistical models that we are able to explain from a mathematical point of view. So for example, very recently, some people were able to prove the consistency of random forests. So we can produce some mathematical proofs of why these machine learning tools work. But it has been proved on a lot of examples that deep learning have a better prediction properties than all these tools. So they are more accurate in terms of predictions, but it's much more difficult to try to understand why it works. So if you are interested in this area, there is a lot of things to do with trying to explain why deep learning works. Okay, so this was the first example. The next one is about the infant visual system. So as you may know, children do not see the same things than us. So you have an example of an image that adults would be able to see. And this is the same image, but for 3 months, 6 and 9 months old babies. So you can see that at 3 months old, everything is inaccurate. You cannot even recognize the Mickey Mouse face. So it's well known, but what is not well known is how this visual system will improve during the first months. And this project was about trying to understand the development of this visual system. So the question is really, where do infants gaze? So we have data. We are able to record eyes movements. So you just put like this kind of cask on the head of a baby with a red point here that will just, it's just to calibrate the camera. And a camera will be able exactly to record where does this baby look on this image, for example. So you have the fixation, so where does baby gaze? So we have data from 50 adults, 200 infants. Each of the subjects have seen 5 images during 5 seconds. So we have data, and we want to understand the spatial distribution of the visual attentions, and this for the different ages. And what is really important is also to take into account the influence of the image. So here are the data for this rafting boat for 3 months old, 6, 9, 12, and adults. So what you can see is that even babies with essentially look at the people on the boat. And this is not because they are people, individuals, but just because this is the part of the image which is more salient. So the influence of the salient point is very, very important. So you can see some differences between the way we gaze at the image. So if we just focus for a few seconds on the adults, what you can see is that we gaze essentially on the people, and also just here, I don't know if you can see, there is a lot of green points here, just because here you have the name of the boat. Okay, and as adults, if you have letters on an image, adults will obviously look at the letters, and this is not the case for the children. So the adult fixations were very homogeneous. So we have at least 500 points per image, and it's less the case for the infants. So the statistical analysis that was used was a spatial point process. So, for example, if you consider that the intensity of the fixation is a model with a Poisson regression model with this kind of intensity, what you want to take into account is really spatial covariates, like saliency maps. So you have the quasi-likelihood, you know how to estimate these parameters. So what are the challenges? So maybe at the first level, so you could have a large number of covariates, so you might be able to, you might need to penalize the likelihood, so there are some theoretical questions about penalizing such likelihood. If you just want to test the effect of age, so differences between 3 months old and 12 months old, or also of spatial covariates or Poisson assumption, you have a lot of questions about statistical testing, which may not be so difficult to treat. What is more challenging is when you want to couple such fixed spatial data with more complex data, because we are also able, even for babies, to record EEG data. So you just put this kind of cask on the head of the baby, and you obtain like spatial temporal data. So then you have to mix very complex data. So some are spatial, some are continuous, some will be discrete, categorical. And it's not so easy to analyze very different data like this. And also another point that have been observed on this data is that we have a huge heterogeneity between subjects. And we have to take into account this heterogeneity. And the next step would be to work with dynamic images also, because we know that during a video, if you have making eye contact or talking or hand movements, this will influence a lot where you look at on the image. And then this is a non-stationary process, so we cannot use the usual machinery to analyze this spatial data. Okay, next example is about handwriting. So as you may know, it's a complex activity which requires some perceptual and motor skills, cognitive skills, and linguistic skills. So usually, when we write a letter, it requires first several steps. So first to retrieve the letter stored in your memory, then access the motor program associated to the tracing of this letter, and then to execute the program. So obviously, as adults, we have automatic way to write, but this is not the case for children. So when you start learning writing, you will write very slowly, and children are guided by visual feedbacks. And then when you improve writing, the movement of writing will be controlled based on internal representation of motor acts, and not just on visual feedbacks. So at a cognitive level, we say that we start from retroactive control, where retroactive is the control is made by these visual feedbacks, to proactive control. And here you have some example of writing for first grade and second grade children. So, but we know that almost 8% of children never master handwriting. So they will continue writing very slowly. They will make unnecessary pen movements, irregular pressure of the pen, and with great variability. And this is what we call developmental coordination disorder. And nowadays in France, we want to detect these children to help them very early to improve their writing. So what do we have? We have data from Kinetic handwriting. So 1,000 children have been followed. So their ages from 5 to 10 years old. All of them have been visited twice, and they have been asked to write on a tablet, electronic tablet with electronic pen, so 26 letters and the 10 numbers. So we have about 80,000 data sets with all the points, for each letter, so we have the speed at which they have written the letter, the velocity, the length, the duration, and the pressure of the pen, the level, the altitude of the pen. So a lot of indicators. So what we want to do is, from this data, try to understand the development of handwriting. So we have functional data. We have data along time. and we have a huge heterogeneity between subjects. So this is just the length of writing a letter, and this is age, between 5 years old and 10 years old. And each point is for one subject. So as you may see, we have really a huge variability between the subjects. So the objectives, what we have been asked is to propose a kinetic model to describe the development of handwriting and to be able to predict and classify this disorder of coordination. So what are the statistical challenges? So we work with functional mixed data. And we need to introduce, so we have like a regression model. So these are the data along time, so because it's a dynamic set of data that we have. So it's a regression model, but we have to introduce wrapping functions just to translate and transform the data. And also we have repetitions for each subject, 2 visits. So we will introduce like random effects, random parameters to describe this variability between subjects. So what we want is to estimate non-parametrically these 2 functions, f and omega, and we will make a parametric assumption for the random effects. So we deal with semi-parametric estimation, and we want to test the effect of some covariates. And the main question will be about the identification of the good summaries, because we have a lot of them, the speed, the velocity, and blah, blah, blah. So then we deal with the well-known problem of false discovery rate. And so we have a lot of procedures to deal with false discovery rate, and I would be interested to apply this new one, which is called the knockoff filter proposed by Barber and Candace last year. And to finish, so just a few words about social network. It's not I'm not a specialist of social network, but as you may know, we have a lot of data from all the social networks like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and even with the connected phones, you have the geographic locations, the social interactions, the physical activity of a lot of people. So if you want to infer, to estimate some networks from this data, the main challenge is nowadays to try to estimate sparse networks, so induce sparsity in random graph, also to estimate non-trivial topological features, and you may have different scales of interaction, like micro and macro scales. So it's quite difficult to answer all these challenges. And just to finish, some discussion on big data. So now we have the same source of drawing. So I hope you will be convinced that there are a lot of mathematical issues, because we deal with complex statistical models, even if we are not working with big data. Like I prefer to call them smart data. But we have a lot of complex models, meaning that from a mathematical point of view, we need to solve complex computational problems, to optimize complex function, and for sure you need to be efficient in programming everything. So this is like the mathematical issues. But I wanted also to mention 2 other points about our responsibility as a scientist. So you have to be very careful when you prepare the design of experiments. And we need sourceful measurement, even if we have a lot of new machinery for machine learning and efficient algorithm. If you don't have accurate data or data that have been produced to answer the question you want to answer, you may just conclude something completely wrong. So be careful with the design of the experiment. And another point that we have just discussed this morning during the breakfast is about reproducibility. So I think it's really, really important to to make like good science, or I don't know how to say, just because the public has to be confident in scientists. So the reproducibility is really, really an issue. And I think that the movement of data sharing is a good answer for reproducibility. So I really encourage people to share the data, share the codes, and try to open the information. And also something about ethics, because my talk was about social and human sciences. So ethics and big data have a lot of challenges. So the main 4 challenges that are usually mentioned are the following. About the identity is, so I just said before that we could use data from social networks, but are we sure that online existence is very similar to offline existence? Personally, I don't think this is true. Something about privacy. Who should control access to data about you? Ownership. What does it mean to own data about ourselves? And reputation. How can we determine what is trustworthy? So this is about reputation. Thank you very much.